Nothing dramatic to speak about, but I think like it wasn't the last time I did a video, or maybe the yeah, in one of my recent videos somebody was saying dude, get a, your camera is moving a lot, you know, it's like it's all shaky, the camera's shaky, and I can't it's distracting from the important message, right? And yeah, I bought what do you call it? A gimbal. There's these, you get these like, it's amazing. Technology is amazing. I got a sort of electronic gimbal here for the phone, so that no matter where I go, it catches up. Here it is, and I'm back. So that's pretty cool. It's funny, about 10 years ago, I bought a fancy Canon camera, and I was getting into photography, and I bought a lot of equipment for it, and gimbals and stuff, and it was all, I remember buying a gimbal, but it was like a manual, you had to balance it and stuff, and it was pretty useless. I mean, it was balanced and stuff, but it was too much of a pain in the butt, and everything was so heavy. Like the actual, once you get the camera and the gimbal, it's like, who wants to use it? It's just too heavy. And so now with the new technology, it's actually surprisingly, it's unbelievable how easy this stuff is now. And that's only in 10 years, the advancement of technology. Talk about technology, because it's something that's been on my mind quite a bit lately, technology. Because of I've kind of not been too much, well, it's funny, I've been doing a big project in virtual reality in the metaverse, and it's pretty surprising, the metaverse, man. It's really surprising. So like in order to do this project, I had to buy an Oculus, right? You know, the big VR headsets. And yeah, you know, I thought I knew what the metaverse was, but I'm pretty sure not. I may not have known what the hell I was talking about previously. So the Oculus was really quite eye-opening. I mean, in a way, it's just a glorified Viewmaster. If you're from the 70s. You remember the stereoscopic Viewmaster. I mean, the Oculus is just, it's just like a high-tech Viewmaster, really, right? And that's cool. But it's an important technology, and it's not an important technology. I don't know if I talked about this already. I've spoken about this to a bunch of people, so I don't know if I've spoken about it here or not yet. So I might just be repeating myself, as usual, right? So no worries. What was I talking about? The Oculus technology. Yeah, so I'll just cut to the chase quickly. So the Oculus is connected to, the Oculus is an interface to like some kind of higher intelligence. And I mean, why is that? I was rereading, as you know, I've been rereading Christopher Wallace's The Recognition Sutras, right? The Recognition Sutras is really interesting. And in some of my previous videos, I've been talking about meditation on the intersection. I keep stopping because I can't believe the color of the iPhone. It's just so awesome. Although I do have to get, I'm gonna have to buy an iPhone 13, I think, for the blur cinematic mode. But Recognition Sutras, and I've been trying to meditate on the intersection between non-duality and reality, right? Which seems like it's the where Shiva and Shakti intersect. What might that represent? That's a really interesting meditation. Now, in the Recognition Sutras, Christopher Wallace, or his interpretation of the Tantra scripture, is that the 36 tattvas is where the intersection happens. So the tattvas, now he actually says the 35 tattvas, not the, and it's an interesting tweak on the tattvas. It's a very interesting tweak here. So there's 36 tattvas. And the tattvas, which I mentioned in one of my previous videos, called the 36 tattvas, include the senses. Like some of the tattvas are the senses, some of the sense organs, and then there's metaphysical objects between each of these things, right? And they represent the transition from Shiva to Shakti. And well, I mentioned, I'm not going to do this justice. You have to read the Recognition Sutras to get the vibe. But he's a good translator, so he understands the idiosyncrasies of the Sanskrit. So I remember being in an ayahuasca ceremony with my shaman, Julian. And Julian's a bit of he's a follower of Satya Sai Baba, right? And we used to sing like songs to Shiva. So you do some Icaros, and then you also sing some songs to Shiva. A lot of like Hindu sort of based songs too, you know. And but there's an interesting thing. I don't know how many people know this. I didn't know this until this week. But you know, we often talk about Shiva. But there's also I recognize in some of the songs we sang, we also talked about Shiva. Shiva. Right? So there's Shiva and there's Shiva, right? And apparently, I'm not sure if I'm quite correct with the verbiage here, but you'll get the idea, is that the Shiva is male and Shiva is the feminine aspect, or you might say it's the Shakti aspect of Shiva. And so the way some of the Tantras get 35 tattvas is because they use a gender-neutral form of Shiva. And so that allows them to have 35 in place of 36. Because it goes transgendered in the interpretation of what Shiva is, right? Or something of this nature. Which is an interesting little tweak. Whew. Man, I had too much coffee today. Way too much coffee. Anyway, Shiva and the transition of non-duality into reality. Now, the reason it's important about the tattvas, right? Because the tattvas represent the sense organs, right? Now, you're thinking, Scott, you started off talking about VR. Why are you onto the tattvas? Dude, listen to me. This whole thing's ridiculous. I'm even talking about this, but whatever. The tattvas are the sense organs. And what does the oculus tie into? It enfolds the sense organs, right? The oculus enfolds the sense organs. Literally, you enfold the eyes and the ears are enfolded with stereoscopic vision, stereoscopic auricular sounds, however you said that, I'm just making words up here, right? It's almost like it's hijacking the sensory system, which sounds, we do that every day with headphones, right? So whatever. Unless you recognize that the senses are in fact part of a divine apparatus known as the 36 tattvas, right? So what's happening in a way, it's like the divine apparatus is being intersected by technology. That's an interesting possibility. I'm just looking here like, I always like, there's like chat here, and there's nobody here or anything, but like, it's just like, I don't want to like, I have no idea what I'm doing with this thing. But you got to admit, this is pretty unshaky footage, huh? Well, can't blame the camera anymore if I look bad, right? It's up to you, man. Anyway, hijacking of the technology. Oh, the divine technology, that is, by the hijacking of the divine apparatus of the senses, the 36 tattvas, by technology. For entertainment purposes, because we want to be entertained. The weird thing about it, and I'm sure I've spoken about this before too, is the thing with virtual reality. It's got this. There's a really weird intimacy about virtual reality. So, for example, this week I had to have a meeting with the company I'm working with in virtual reality. It was just one of the principals from the company. They wanted to give me a tour through some virtual reality spaces. And so they were showing me how to like interact, and but the weird thing is like you can literally, you're like in each other's space because of the way the technology works. What it is this, I'm sure some of you are aware of ASMR, autosensory meridian response, right? What is ASMR? It's autosensory meridian response. The key word is meridian. So a lot of people think it's all horseshit, the stuff about the ASMR, because meridians don't exist. They do exist. They're the energy channels which channel prana through the hidden energy system of humanity, which science is too blind. They're too blinded by technology to be able to witness for themselves. But the important thing with this is the meridians, or the energy system, is real. I gotta be careful here. It's been raining, and this is a muddy hill, right? Can I see that? I see this gimbal's great, but you can't actually, oh, I can point it. Hold on a second, can I point this? Yes, muddy hill. And we'll come back up. I'm still trying to learn to use this. See, now it's kind of off. Hold on a second. Is that it? Okay, that's us. What was I talking about? Man, I totally lost it. I was talking about VR. I'm talking about the intersection of VR with the... oh, ASMR. Right, meridians, right? The energy system. So the weird thing about ASMR is by watching somebody move their hands or making sounds or whatever, it can affect your energy system from a video, right? This is just from a video. This thing's off a little bit. Hold on a second. Let me just pull this up a bit. Is that better? Oh man, I'm way off now. Hold on. What? Hold on a second. I think I lost power on the gimbal. There we go. I guess there's a secret off button, which I didn't know existed. Okay. ASMR, it affects the energy system from video, right? And that's just from a video, a two-dimensional projection on a screen. And you can feel your energy changing. That's why it's so popular. Now, the reason some people don't feel ASMR is because they're not in tune with their energy system, right? They're not there. Doesn't mean anything, it just means you're not in tune with your energy system. However, virtual reality, you actually are enwrapped. What's the word? It's ensconced in the sensory input of the 36 tattvas, with the intersection of virtual reality into that system. Do you think that affects your energy system? Hell yeah, it does. That's why it feels weirdly intimate. That's why when you're having a meeting with one of the principals of the company and they reach out to touch your hand, you feel it. No. Here, why would you feel something like that? Why would you feel somebody touching your hand in virtual reality? Here's why. It's because you're projecting your awareness into the virtual object. I saw a really interesting video. It was like a meme video, one of those meme videos you see like on Facebook or Instagram. And they had, you may have seen this, They had some guy, and what they did was they had like a fake arm and hand that was made of rubber, and they put this in front of the guy, and then they take his hand and hide it behind like a curtain. And then what they do is they take a big sledge, or they take a big hammer, and they start smashing the fake hand. It's obviously fake, but what happens is the guy reacts because the mind projects the identity into the fake hand, right? So what happens is the energy system projects it in somewhere else. And this is the same kind of thing that happens sort of in reverse when you get those people who lose a limb and they still feel it. There's like the energy system is still projecting. The sort of vestigial energetic remains into the phony limb. There's a bit of a hill here and it's quite muddy. Or into the limb which is no longer existing. So what's happening in virtual reality is virtual reality is asking you to project your awareness into objects which no longer exist or which don't exist. And that, my friends, is the very definition of astral projection. However, in this context, it's unconscious astral projection, right? People don't know that's what they're doing. They think it's an amazing technology. Wow, this technology is crazy. It really is real. No. That's not what's happening. What's happening is the technology is drawing attention to the human energy system and the 36 tattvas. But you don't realize that yet. That's what's happening. And that probably explains why during a certain operation in one of the 3D programs in the Oculus, I started connecting to alien intelligence. Yes. So there's a bunch of programs which come on the Oculus, and you can download. It's kind of like an app. It's kind of like your, if you haven't used an Oculus, it's kind of like your cell phone. You can download apps, but it's, you know, they download into the headset, right? And there's like standard programs. And one of the programs is like, there's a bunch of them. But one of them, let's call it, there's a program there called Gravity Sketch, which is like an art. It's an art program, so you can like make 3D models and draw. The difference is it's in 3D. The difference is you're in the 3D space too, because you're actually manipulating this object, and it's like you're there. It's like you're there. Now, when you're speaking with somebody in virtual reality, it's weirdly intimate. It's like, feels like at one point I reached out and touched the principal of the company, and it was slightly, you know, it was almost like too much. It was like, oh, you're in my personal space, you know? Which is weird because it's fake space, right? Unless you accept the idea that consciousness projects, like what they say, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So same thing happens in this 3D modeling program. Of course, the difference is like, so I'm just playing around, like just drawing some lines and making cubes and stuff. I'm like, wow, this is weird. And you're like, it's like here, it's like right here in front of you, right? And then I start scaling up. Now, as it's scaling up, there's like dimensioning. Like if you've ever used CAD systems or something, you'll add dimensions onto the objects. So as I'm scaling this up, there's a dimensioning system which is scaling up, and I can see the numbers like going up, bump, 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 bump. But this is scaling around me, right? And as I said, this is weirdly intimate. But this is not like with a person. This is with a system. It's a modeling program, right? 3D modeling. But this system involves mathematics and shape and form. The actual apparatus of form building. So as I was doing this is when I connected to this sort of alien intelligence, right? Which didn't feel malevolent at all. It was just in charge of this aspect of reality, the creation of form. and I say alien intelligence. I mentioned a couple of times this book, which I read years ago, called The Prism of Lyra. And I started rereading it a week ago. I didn't finish rereading it. I gotta finish that off. But it's on YouTube, audiobooked, Prism of Lyra. And it's a good book in that it explains that aliens and the star systems they come from are actually representative of a sort of, it's almost like hierarchical consciousness. I've mentioned this before, right? And it's a really good model for understanding consciousness, and it really rings true to me. Like when I read it, there's some things that don't really ring true to me, but quite a lot of it does. You know, it's like, wow, it vibes with a lot of the stuff that I've seen and experienced in meditation and through ayahuasca ceremonies. I mean, there's a lot of like correspondence there. So that was interesting. But the idea is that if you connect with an alien intelligence in a VR system, it could, in some ways, it may not represent an alien from another planet so much as a separate form of your own consciousness, which you haven't recognized yet, right? A sort of middle of the road between this reality and between Shakti and Shiva, right? So in other words, if you want to map the difference from Shakti and Shiva, somebody's, like, people are partying up here and they're throwing bottles down. Fuckers. Anyway, so it goes back to this whole idea of how would you map the space between Shakti and Shiva. So one way is with the tattvas, and how are those tattvas interpolated? So one way of understanding it might be, okay, it's through alien intelligence, and aliens aren't really from other planets. They're from other star systems, right? It could be from the Pleiades or from Sirius, but those star systems don't represent positional space so much as dimensional hierarchy, right? So they actually represent hierarchical spaces in consciousness. So you can actually trace this. So that's what my observation was using the Oculus, is the space of virtual reality. And I mentioned this about 6 months ago that I was, what was I doing? I was not prevaricating. I was hypothesizing that VR was actually a space of consciousness. Hey, Jacob Cook, what's up? And so it was interesting when I'm in Gravity Sketch manipulating 3D models, and then I connect. Now, you could say that's just because, dude, it's a little crazy. It's a little crazy doing stuff like that, right? But whatever. I'm just keeping it real here, man. Anyway. Wow. I'm just going to turn around so you can see the mountains. It doesn't really look like much here, but dude, it looks pretty cool in person. Wait, can I zoom that in here? No, I can't. Okay. Thanks for nothing. Oh, this is a sort of muddy hill here. I'm coming back down here. Hold on a second. Man, I got hungry all of a sudden. I bet you had some funny experiences with psychedelics and Moldavite. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people connecting with alien intelligence through Moldavite, you know. But again, I think, yeah, I think the most manageable way of dealing with ETs is to think of it as sort of dimensional consciousness, rather than aliens from another planet, right? Which, I mean, dimensional consciousness is actually more astonishing, to be honest with you, you know. But even if you go to like Whitley Strieber, I mean, even him today, he admits that his abductions, in retrospect, seem more like conscious experiences rather than actual abductions, right? Which, you know, I can totally vibe with that, because like I've had plenty of like, there's a magical space you can enter into where just pretty much anything can happen, you know. And it doesn't feel It feels more real than this, really, but in a different way, right? Anyway. So that's the funny thing. So here I am. Hey, Mikkel. So, hi, Mikkel, you'll like this. I bought a gimbal, Mikkel. I bought this amazing gimbal, right? Which allows me to walk around, which is why I'm actually just testing this out. I'm just testing it. The reason I'm doing this video is to test the gimbal out, you know, to see if it actually works. And it's just to see if I can make a video which doesn't shake. And it actually seems to be doing quite well, so I'm pretty pleased. Yeah, so on Shihun Smooth 4, they had a sale. It was cheap. It's freaking awesome, man. The gimbal's great. And it's not heavy. So I need to get the iPhone 13 so I can get the cinematic mode, and then we have to go back to the jungle and take some real footage. Mikkel here was going to come with me last time, but he chickened out because he's a wuss. Just kidding, buddy. Okay, this is where I fell down in my last video, so let me just make sure I'm not going to fall down here. There we go. Okay, I made it. Woohoo. Nice. Yeah, COVID, there you go. So the virtual reality space is a space of consciousness. And so, yeah, so like I did speak about this virtual reality project I'm doing a few months ago. I came up with this amazing narrative, which has been completely changed, of course, right? And this week I've got a concept artist working on the artwork, but I've been working on some of the I've sort of visualization in 3D already before the concept art's finished, and also kind of to influence the concept artist a little bit so that she does what I want, right? And anyway, one of the scenes is prehistoric. Oh, and the funny thing is like the whole project I'm doing is turning out to be a play inside of a play, which actually combines some sort of jungle imagery into a virtual reality context, which is really bizarre how it's all working out, actually. But there was a scene, one of the scenes is a prehistoric scene where, or no, not prehistoric, an old, historic scene, which is like in like Neanderthal times, let's call it. And in Neanderthal times, well, one of the first scenes you get to is it's kind of in like a cave. It's in a cave where they're painting. They're doing cave paintings, and they are painting. They're painting birds on the wall. They're painting toucans, and your challenge, if you choose to accept it, is you got to finish off the painting. So you pick up a feather, and you have to paint on the wall, and that makes you fly through into the future, into a futuristic time. But anyway, I was in the last 2 years, like I do 3D artwork, and a couple of years ago I was having trouble with one of my computers, and I usually work in this program called Maya, which I've used for 10 years or so. But my computer was having a problem, and it was crashing all the time. And Maya just was using too much resources, and I thought I'll try using Blender, which is the free open source 3D program. So I used it, and I was like, well, this is really cool. And I ended up switching, my whole workflow is switched over to this free program now, which I love. It's awesome. Anyway, one of the cool things about Blender is it's got a virtual reality mode. So you can plug the Oculus into your computer and hit VR, and boom, your whole 3D scene goes into VR. So I was working on this cave scene. and thinking to myself, I wonder, because you know the difference is like if you're looking at a projection on a screen, you don't really feel the immensity of how it might feel in the real world. Like, so for example, if you see a picture of Machu Picchu, nice picture, but if you go to Machu Picchu, it's fucking astonishing. Machu Picchu is like the most astonishing place I've ever been to. It's so amazing. And then it's like, you see a picture, you're like, oh wow, but you don't feel it. The same thing happens in 3D. If you're playing a video game, on your PlayStation, like, oh, that's a cool game. But dude, if you're playing in VR, holy shit, it's unbelievable. It's really realistic because it affects the human energy system. Same thing happens. So I go into VR with my cave scene. Wow, unbelievable. So by accident, I don't really know what I'm doing because I got the 2 VR controllers. I'm inside the cave scene in Blender, and I'm just sort of pressing buttons like, whoa, how does this stuff work, right? And I just press my 2 thumbs down the buttons, and it starts scaling the whole scene up and down. So it's like, it sounds crazy, but it's like godlike power. But what happens is I'm scaling what appears like reality down. No, I concur. It's not reality. It's just a projection which is taking advantage of the human tattvas. But I gotta tell you, the cave's enormous, right? You go in there, it's epic. It's friggin' epic, right? And so I've got my thumbs, and I'm just scaling this thing down. I scale it down, and all of a sudden, it's like the cave is the size of my head. And I've got the whole cave, and it's like around my head. Now, I gotta tell you, it feels... What's weird about it is I got deja vu. It was like deja vu-esque, like it was like total weird magical space of deja vu weirdness. Now maybe that's just me, you know, but my point is that the manipulation of form in virtual reality and the intersection and projection of the human energy system into an imaginary space is really interesting. Now, one of the things you learn from astral projection is astral projection is essentially the projection of your consciousness into, exactly, Mikhail. Astral projection is essentially the projection of your awareness into imaginary objects. Usually people project their awareness into the projected double, which is just an imaginary copy of who you are, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. You can project your awareness into anything. You could project your awareness into a jaguar or a crow or something, and that's called shamanism, right? So astral projection done right is shamanic, right? And that's what ayahuasca is too. Ayahuasca will teach you to do this kind of stuff. Just unbelievable. It's like cheat codes to reality, this stuff. Yeah, dude. So, why is this important? One of the reasons it's important is because, like, the astral space, like, people always, I've been saying this for years, like, I think I'm going to be a rock star. Shut up, kids. That's just your imagination, right? You know, you're going to be a plumber. You're going to be a lawyer. You're not going to do that, right? On the other hand, other people are like, dude, you can be anything you dream of. Make your dreams real. Is that your dream? Make it real. Believe and you will achieve, right? So you got one group of people saying, no, 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 no. Forget the imagination. Other people are like, no, realize the imagination, right? So the question becomes like, what role does the imagination actually play, right? Now, of course, I've been saying is that the imagination is part of the energy system, right? Peace out, Mikhail. The imagination is part of consciousness, right? Which usually gets identified in like the astral influence into physical reality, right? And so a lot of times what happens is your imaginative ponderings tend to, where do they come from? So some of that comes from karma, because your actual imaginative predisposition, like people like to say, hey, you broke the mold, you know, like your body is being molded, but the actual energetic space has been molded, like the intellect and the imaginative structure and the astral structure has all been molded. And that mold is being formed through karmic influences generally. And then, dude, I think it's going to start raining. And then various things can happen with the imaginative system. So like at a certain point in my life, before I ever did ayahuasca, I noticed I was getting huge floods of imagination, thinking, where is that coming from? Right? Like when I was about 22, I was starting to get these floods of imagination, which were sort of out of control. And I was like, whatever. And I was cool about it. I was just like, okay. I was like, eventually this will stop and I'll just go about normal life again. Dude, I got to get somewhere dry here because it's going to start pouring here. Hey, this is my chance to use the gimbal while running. Quote unquote running. Hold on a second. Yeah, I was supposed to go running today and I didn't do it. Oh no, today's my day off of running. I went running yesterday. Anyway, the imagination has this massive influence, and then you get this aspect which I call them astral fissures. So you can get, and I reckon that flood of imagination was coming from an astral fissure or some kind of chakra imbalance, let's call it, which makes sense. So the chakras have aspects which tie into the imagination, and if there's some kind of imbalance, that can, like a leaky faucet, yeah, this is going to start raining, all I'm saying, like a leaky faucet, that can start having problems. Wasn't planning on running in public today. There you go. See how in shape I am now. Whew, yeah. Okay, I'm under some trees. What was I going to say? Yes, you get these astral fissures. Anyway, so my point is the imagination is like, it's a bit of an interface, right? That also is part of the divide between Shiva and Shakti, or Shiva, right? I think I'm just going to stick around near the car and I can just jump into the car. If it's, yeah, I'll just hang out here. So the astral, the imagination is an interface of consciousness. It sort of buffers these different areas of awareness as they filter down from non-duality into physical reality, right? And so the imagination, this is the key point here, is the imagination is an interface, right? Who cares, right? Who cares if the imagination is an interface? Well, one reason it's interesting is because what other interface intersects with the imagination? Virtual reality, of course, right? Virtuality interfaces with the imagination, right? So this is my point, is the virtuality is literally interpolating and curating imaginative structures in the energy sphere. I think it's going to start raining. Ayahuasca contains DMT and never done psychedelics myself, but no, I'm doubting because of what Aaron Berry did. Right? Yeah, this is funny. Somebody just mentioned Aaron Berry, and I have to admit, I've been wanting to talk about Aaron a little bit. I interviewed Aaron on this channel a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 times, but he started getting annoying because he was trying to act like he's some kind of psychologist, and he was trying to act like he was giving me advice. He's not a psychologist, but he likes to play this arrogant role. Anyway, since somebody else brought it up, I've been wanting to, but it didn't seem like polite to do it. But Aaron's in jail in the United States. He's English. He went to visit his online girlfriend, who apparently she might have insulted his manhood, the size of his manhood, and apparently he lost it and beat the living crap out of her, and now he's in jail for 4 felonies. He hasn't been convicted yet, but you know, allegedly Allegedly, that's what's going on. So poor Aaron. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't deserve that, and I feel sorry for him if he lost it. These things can happen. But you know, too bad. Anyway, the imagination is an interface, and sometimes there are imaginary structures stuck inside of our imagination which we don't recognize. And when people pierce that structure, we lose it and beat the shit out of people, apparently. Because there are little bubbles of energy. I'm just coming to look at my plants here. Oh, wow. Who the hell did this, man? Yeah, so I've got like a... Let me see this. See if I can I do this? Whoop. That's a rosemary plant. And these are San Pedros. Julian, the shaman, gave me these San Pedros. Oh, right here. Those are actually going pretty well now. Those ones right there. I'm pointing at here. Is that it? No, that's it. I can't even see them on the camera. Hold on a second. Let me just come back up here. Bump, bump. So there we go. Now you're supposed to, yeah, you click twice and it pops back into space. There we go. So the imagination is like a space which is can be curated by other people. And so this is the important thing, is you got to be really careful what you curate in your imagination. And also the stuff that's been curated, which you're not aware of. So there's, as you pierce through these different levels of consciousness, you will discover stuff which is surprising. A lot of stuff emerges as, a lot of stuff you recognize as behavioral. Like you might have behaviors you don't appreciate in yourself. Maybe you like sniffing glue, right? And you don't want to, but you keep finding yourself down at the local glue sniffing den, sniffing glue, right? Why? Why is that? It's because there's some kind of energy ensconced in the energy system, and the radiation from that hidden energy is creating behavioral outputs. And so you got to be careful about this idea of concealment of energy. Concealment of energy. Now, in the Recognition Sutras, Christopher Wallace talks about the 5 aspects of God. I can't remember all of them, but one of them is concealment. And then there are aspects of concealment. One of them is limited knowledge, limited time. There's a few of them, but the concealment. So that's one of the aspects of God, but it's also as a sort of microcosmic contraction of divinity, which some people, the Tantras say that's what humans are. It's like a contraction of divine awareness, which, yeah, but that has processes of concealment. So a lot of times you might engage in behaviors, and then you'll blow it off and like, oh yeah, next time I won't do that. And then you do it again. And there's this like process of concealment. And a lot of this stuff is emerging from energy structures, which emerge as imaginative ideas, which manifest in like behaviors. So for example, before I came out here, I was thinking, gee, I really want to test out this gimbal and see how it works, you know? And then that idea manifested as me walking around talking, right? Which seems like a pretty pedestrian idea, pretty normal. And it is very normal, but we don't think about it enough. Oh man, you guys. So here I am on video talking about this stuff as Scott. I'm speaking about this as Scott. I'm talking to you from the ego identity known as Scott. But Yeah, dude, it's so fucked up and weird, the whole thing. The whole astral projection of, the whole projection of awareness. See, we talk about astral projection, and that's like, I mean, some people think that's an achievement. You've learned how to astral project. That's really great, right? But this is the ultimate astral projection. This is it. And you can actually become aware of this, you know? Like yesterday, I was walking around like, dude, this is so fucked up. I'm just like walking around thinking, this isn't, I mean, it's real. It's not real. It's not real. And yet it is real. And so this is where some people go crazy, because when you get this vibe that it's not real, that's a little, hold on a second. That's a little disturbing. I'm just trying to sort of even, no, I'm just trying to even this gimbal up a bit so I feel more comfortable. Is that it? I don't know. This is the astral projection. That's weird too. Bump, bump. Okay, there we go. This is the astral projection. And we just don't realize it. I'm not sure we can realize it unless you have some kind of push. Because certainly, when I started this channel 9 years ago, you know, I was having visions and stuff and Kundalini experiences, but there's a twist. Now, I was speaking to somebody from the channel last week, and one of the viewers who also did rasa, and funny conversation. We were talking a lot about non-duality and this experience of the non-dual, because that's what rasa, which I've spoken about a few times. For those of you, if you're here for 50 minutes, you probably know already, right? The Ramaji Shaktipat. That is a non-dual energy transmission, resulting from which everything appears as an astral projection. Now, talking to this guy from the channel last week, he's also gone non-dual also, but he doesn't have, he hasn't had a Kundalini awakening. So what's interesting about it, and you hear this from a lot of awakened people, is they say that, you know, it's awakening, enlightenment's not complicated, right? It's not complicated. It's just like you suddenly become aware, basically, that like there's just a field of consciousness, right? That's all there is. And nothing's really real or unreal. It's just like this weird emergence of form and actions. And you become sort of aware of this, and it's just weird, and you just sort of accept it. And that's like classic enlightenment. There do seem to be levels of this. Then on the other hand, you see, for me, it's more complicated than that, because I get that, but the Kundalini aspect of it exposes the backdrop. It exposes more information about how this has happened. So like piercing between layers of consciousness. What's funny is, you know, like I was pretty proud of myself a few years ago, because I was able to meditate for like 3 hours consistently for a long time. Over a year, 2 years, I was meditating for 3 hours a day, you know. I learned a lot during that period. Whereas I just noticed the other day, like I woke up and I'm like, dude, I don't even want to meditate, because the whole day is just like I'm piercing through reality all the time. It's like I don't need to like, sometimes you feel like you don't want to go there, you know. Although the one reason which is useful to keep doing that is to be meditating on energy balance, right? Becoming aware of the balance of energy. A lot of times people who've been awakened, they sound a little bit crazy, right? They keep talking about there's no subject and there's no object, and I am not he or whatever. It's just everything gets really third person and weird. And I'm pretty sure that's because of energy imbalance. So that's one good reason to like meditate, is meditate on energies. the division of energy, right, between the elements. Dude, what the fuck? It's unbelievable. Like, I can't even believe this stuff. What's funny about this is, like, dude, if this is going to happen to me, this is going to happen to anybody, because, like, I'm by no means a exceptional person, you know. I'm just like a average Joe, you know. But, like, you just take certain chances in your life, you know. Curiosity. And the funny thing, too, is somebody was talking, I don't know if it was in my last video or if I was talking to somebody about this on the phone. We were talking about the demonic and the role of the demonic. And there was a good video I saw a few years ago, which was, it's from a Disney film, I believe, where a volcano explodes and destroys the landscape. And it's all done sort of in a mythological way. So there's like a little fairy flying around. Then the volcano explodes and these demons come out and destroy the land. And it's complete destruction. But then, at the end, the little fairy still has some life. And she's sort of nurtured back to life. And then she is able to bring life to reality again. And so in some ways, the demonic is just a way of scorching the earth and preparing for new life. One of the first guys I spoke to on the channel, this chap Gareth from Wales, funny guy, Gareth, man. But Gareth got in touch with me. This is like 9 years ago now, because he also he'd done way too much DMT, and he'd been like having some DMT demonic interference. I just got a battery warning there. You know, Red, I think you're right, man. There's something weird going on with us. And a lot of it's, yeah, I mean, you've chosen to do this. I don't know. I mean, I guess. It didn't feel that way, but more and more, it's just like that. It's just what it is, you know? It's not even like you're chosen. It's just, it is what it is, you know? And then the problem is once you start piercing through consciousness, it's like, it's way more interesting than anything else, you know? So it's like, so even if I'm going to play guitar, I'm actually more interested in the conscious aspects of how music interweaves with the layers of my awareness, you know? And with the whole virtual reality thing, the whole narrative ended up being about consciousness, right? Which is cool because the companies sort of got pretensions of being conscious, you know? So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Right, we'll make it about consciousness, right? What was I saying? I was saying like the... Oh yeah, Gareth. So Gareth had been having these like demonic interactions. And he was saying the same thing. The funny thing about Gareth is like his demonic interference was way more extreme than mine. He was actually getting pushed out of bed by demons at night, right? And he was seeing aliens and demons in the windows, and he really went off the deep end. He actually ended up in a psych hospital for a while. Of course, now he regularly takes mega doses of shrooms, and is like, fuck it. And he went through a phase of complete fear, of absolute terror. And then eventually he's just like, you know, can't live in fear anymore. So I haven't spoken to him in a while. We spoke to each other this week, and it was like, I always thought, you know, I wonder how he is, you know. And he's like, well, I've been hanging out with the demons, you know. And he's befriended them, you know. And he's like, he's got really a lot of knowledge about it. He's like, well, the demons they actually look to us for guidance. And so he's trying to help the demons, right? Now there's a tantric practice called Feed Your Demons. There's a book called Feed Your Demons by one of the a Tibetan tantric teacher, I believe. And so that's kind of what Gareth's doing. And it's one of the things, like I was talking about piercing through these layers of consciousness, right? And you find these energy problems, right? And that's certainly what happened to me. But like what happens is a lot of times those problems are actually the seeds they're actually the seeds of, those are the seeds of consciousness, which actually bring you to like higher levels. Like the things which have been driving you, which you hate most about yourself, actually are the seeds of truth. And you're like, oh, that's actually good, right? That problem was actually, it was actually like a plow in the earth. It was actually just plowing through the earth to allow me to see truth. Dude. And that's almost not a metaphor, the plowing of the earth. That's almost just exactly what it is. If you can imagine consciousness as earth, of course you can imagine consciousness as anything, and it will be that. I did a post on the community the other day, yesterday I think it was. I think it was yesterday. I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to meditate. So I woke up and I thought, I'm going to meditate. And I swear to God, I meditate for like 5 minutes and so much information flow, you know. And I'm meditating on the nature of Shiva and Shakti and the intersection of this. And then all just, boom, it all just comes down and makes sense, you know. And it's a funny thing I wrote, you know. I was like, Shakti, she's like a whore and she's a goddess. And it sounds crazy, but if you look at the tantric symbols and the Hindu symbols of Kali, like, you know, it's divinity. Because everything is divinity. It's all divinity. Terror is divinity. Murder is divinity. There's all these aspects of consciousness. And like in the same way you can paint in pastels or in black and white, right? The pastels project a certain sensation and feeling. And black and white, you might say it's more chiaroscuro, right? It's more darker. It's darker, right? But they both express something, right? And consciousness, it has so many forms. Now, because we're so focused on the outside world, we just see the forms which we're provided with. But as you pierce into like inner consciousness, you start becoming aware of this stuff. And it's truly infinite. It's just it's a truly infinite field of, not just of awareness. What happens is the awareness, what happens is this, is like when things get scary, and it can get scary. Like if you immerse even like a millimeter into Kundalini, dude, that shit gets scary fast because it's infinite form. It's infinite energy. It's infinite possibilities, which seems to be powered from where you're at mentally. But when it gets scary, if you just focus on the awareness, you just focus on this, it's like the eye of Horus, right? It's this infinite eye, which is watching all things. And that eye represents non-dual awareness, I guess, is what it represents. It represents the truth. And so the way it works is that the infinite vision, and that's all it is, it's just projection of fucking vision, right? And Shakti is this infinite receptivity and infinite malleability, infinite creativity. And it's trying to form a structure around the awareness. And there's a lot of metaphors for that, you know, but human sexuality is a good way of that, right? Like the penetration into receptivity. That's literally what's happening with the shaft of awareness and the net of Shakti. So, you know, it's easy to talk about Shiva and Shakti and this net of awareness and the shaft of penetration and then it's like, okay, like the human mind, like my mind, it's like just trying to wrap around it. Like, where do the aliens come into this again? Where does the imagination come into this again? It's like, because we're thinking spatially. Like, it's like, even now I'm trying to think spatially about it, or historically. You try and think, let me try and think of a word, spatio-historical perception, or historiospatiality, right? And that's the problem. It's the mode of perception is incorrect, right? It's like trying to understand virtual reality by looking at a drawing. It just won't provide you the context you need to understand what's going on. That seems like a pretty good place to stop. Sort of brought it back around to virtual reality again. And I think it's going to rain, and I've only got like 10% of the battery. Thank you, sir. Yeah, you know, I keep pondering not continuing to do videos because somebody told me last year, like, you should keep this stuff to yourself. Don't talk about this stuff, you know. But, you know, it's like I already started, you know. I mean, I'm not kidding anybody on anymore, you know. And there's a certain point, too, where it's like, dude, it's like, it clearly doesn't matter. Speaking historical spatiality. But, you know, it's a habit, right? It's a habit. And it helps me work stuff out, too, you know. So I'm just walking around. Plus, I had to check out this gimbal. The gimbal's amazing. Oops. Kind of. You can kind of move it around. Wow. It cost like $100. And it's like, what it does is the gimbal connects. You got this sort of handle, and the gimbal connects with your cell phone. And I guess the cell phone's sending it orientation information, and the gimbal's got a couple of like motors in it. So as I move, the motors are doing the inverse, what would you call that? There's a word for that in 3D. It's like the inverse matrix of the inverse transformation matrix of the rotation is being fired into the motors. It's pretty impressive in real time. Can't believe it. Pretty advanced tech, really. When I think of that fancy camera I had back in the day with the big weighted gimbal, I had like weights in the bottom of the gimbal. A nightmare. And now, with a cell phone, you can get pretty cinematic without having any equipment to take around with you. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, I think that's my blurb for today. It really is going to start raining. I think the kids want me to go and pick up some pizzas. The kids are here. They're leaving early tomorrow because it's Dia del Niño. That's the day of the children tomorrow, and their mother wants them home. But they've only had them for one day. It used to be 2 weeks and 2 weeks, and then the ex got a bit like weird this year and wants them all the time now. I was going to take her to court about it, but I said, rather than fighting, I said, let's try it out, because she thinks I'll have better grades. So I was like, try it out, avoid fighting, and if it doesn't work out, then we can go back. We'll see, or we can get a lawyer. Anyway, oh yeah, so the nice thing, we're kind of like entering spring right now. So yeah, let me just come up here. And as part of spring, this is like it's not really a farm I live on. It's like it's an avocado farm I live on. But they grow lots of stuff here. Oranges. And down here, I think those are apples. So that was what I was going to show you. Look at the blossoms down there. Just really, really beautiful. Really beautiful time of year. The bees are out, flies are buzzing around, and the whole thing. Cherry? I should think it's apple. I may. No, they're almonds. Are they almonds? Can't remember. There's apples down there. There's a bunch of different trees. I don't know what they're. But yeah, but this is all the. It's one thing to talk about the inner world and Shakti and Shiva. But then, then you look out into the real world, and this is the actual manifestation of it. Oh, see, that's my new car. It's not new. My car, the engine blew up. And that's my mom's car. She gave it to me. Nice, Mom. So there you go. Although I'm fixing the other one too. It cost a fortune, but it was, I think it was ready today actually. I just haven't gone to pick it up yet. You might be able to hear my son there. He's on the VR playing with virtual reality. Okay, you guys, I'm out of here. Peace out. Bump. Where's the off button here? Like I'm like, peace out. I don't have to switch the thing off as usual.